Hello Year 9, how are you doing? Your lesson for today has two routes. You can pick route 1, a recording, or route 2, a piece of written work. Now we've been doing Frankenstein this last half term. We've studied identity, we've studied the relationship that Frankenstein and the monster share with each other. We've looked into the idea of nature versus nurture and love and all those sorts of themes. What I would like you to do is check your emails and look towards the end of this video, because I have popped the monologue that the monster has. Towards the end of the play, when he has led Frankenstein all the way up to the Arctic, he delivers a monologue about how he feels about everything that has gone on, how his heart is black, it stinks, he says. Okay, that's the monologue that I'd like you to perform. And because we're sort of a little bit up in the air about things, and I think that some of you might not have your scripts, this was the easiest way that I could think of getting you guys to perform something, because it is drama after all. So if you check the email, you'll find an attached copy of that monologue, or if you just scoot to the end of this video, you can screen grab the monologue from there and just read it for me. So you can either perform it as a video, in which case I would expect to see some sort of physical expression as well as your use of vocal expression. So that would include your facial expression, your gesture, your posture, your actions as you deliver the monologue, as well as using appropriate vocal expression for how he's feeling at that point in the play. If you don't feel comfortable going on camera with this, you can record yourself as an audio file. Now, most phones these days have audio apps, voice recording things that you can use to get that voice recording done. And all I need you to do is read out the lines with a little bit of feeling. In fact, a lot of feeling, because at this point in the play, Frankenstein's monster is really feeling quite het up about everything. And this monologue is how he gets that across to the audience. So that's your first option. What you then do with the file that you record, whether it's the video or the voice recording, is just drop it into the SharePoint folder that I've sent you the link to, or you can send it to me on Instagram, or you can send it to me over email if the file fits inside the email. Some of them are coming through as quite large and they don't always send. That's why we've got the SharePoint option as a backup. Check your email for that link. Option 2 is a piece of written work. I would like you to consider an alternative ending to Frankenstein. The version that we watched was the National Theatre's version that starred Benedict Cumberbatch as the monster and Johnny Lee Miller as Frankenstein. And we watched all the way up to the very end, where Frankenstein had been led all the way to the Arctic by the monster in revenge for the heartache that he caused him for not loving him as his own son. Okay, at this point in the play, the monster feels incredibly abandoned and incredibly hurt by the way that Frankenstein has been towards him since they first met. Now, we know they met in the lab the first time that the monster sort of came to life and was born, but the exchanges that they've had since that point were very fraught indeed. They weren't very positive encounters, and so the monster has been left feeling quite rejected, and he's quite hurt by this. So he's led him to the Arctic, and Frankenstein at this point is nearly dead, isn't he? Now, your alternative ending could very well consider, what if Frankenstein did die in that moment? What would the monster have done? Would he have gone on a rampage and killed more people because he doesn't know how to deal with the anger that he has inside of his heart? Or after the monster helps him up, and Frankenstein doesn't die, as actually happens in the play, what happens after that? Now, we saw a little agreement between the two of them at the end of the play that the monster needed to die. The monster even sort of references it himself. He says, I can't continue doing what I'm doing. You're the only one that can end my life. You made me, you now need to finish me off. And so they walk off, with the plan to potentially end the monster's life. What if that hadn't happened? What if they'd made some sort of other agreement? What if Frankenstein, in his near-death experience in the Arctic, actually saw the light, so to speak, and he decided to change his ways? He even says in that final scene, I don't know what it is to love. I've lost everybody. What if he does a 180 and he actually becomes the father that the monster has always wanted? It's your decision. You can decide what happens to the monster and Frankenstein, but what I would expect is that the way that you write this scene is in keeping with the rest of the play. No bad language, okay? Sorry, I know that's going to disappoint a couple of people, but no bad language at all. It's just not really that appropriate for this sort of task. So you're to write that, and it's to last about 3 or 4 minutes if I were to perform it here at home, okay? Ideally, it needs to be between more than one character. For example, ideally, maybe Frankenstein and the monster, maybe they have a discussion about how they move forward peacefully, but it is completely up to you. We know that Elizabeth at this point in the play no longer is around because unfortunately the monster killed her as well. Frankenstein's brother isn't alive anymore. So consider who's alive and who isn't and make a scene depending on that, okay? And again, much like with the video, you can just drop that file into the SharePoint folder, write it directly into a reply to the email that I'm going to send you, or attach it as a Word document or something similar to that to the email and send that through to me. I'm going to have a look over those. We are tallying who it is that sends work and who isn't, so that we can get some phone calls made to make sure that work's being chased up. So please bear that in mind. I have one final thing to mention. I really want you to think about what you're doing to stay active during this lockdown. Mentally active as well as physically active. I'll show you what I've been doing. Come on. Absolutely nobody here.
Shake that. Every day I'm shuffling.
And one last thing before we go, I really want to remind people to stay indoors. There have already been a couple of cases of teenagers who've been seen out in the streets since the lockdown who've gotten in a bit of bother with the police, okay? And your parents will be the ones that end up bearing the brunt of that, unfortunately. They are going to fine people if you are found outside without good reason. You only need to leave the house if you are leaving for an emergency, perhaps you have to go to hospital, or if you are going for some essentials from the shop. No other reason, guys, okay? If you have any problems with the work, please let me know. I'll be available on email throughout the normal school day, and stay at home and stay healthy. See you soon.